get the white man off of Gaddafi. And then we would set up our own nation in Libya adjacent to Gaddafi. And we would share the oil money, everything, right? Share the resources, create our own economy for our own nation. But nationalism is not real for Minister Louis Farrakhan. Hollywood is fucking real. They have had enough soldiers trained, cycles and seasons of soldiers, to begin to organize and strategically take over the community from the imperialistic forces right here in America. So I challenge Farrakhan to be real. If we want a nation, we're going to have to fight for it. You claim to be a Muslim, to follow Islam, but the Prophet Muhammad had to fight to institute Islam. And you mean to tell me these suit and tie, bow tie wearing niggas ain't gonna have to fight nobody? How do you represent Islam? What Islamic nation or Islamic people have never had to fight against the Crusaders and infidels, according to the religion of Islam? It has never happened. Farrakhan has been the only Muslim nation that has never had to fight anybody in the history of Islam. Is that suspicious? And the way he keeps smiling and beguiling, he looks like he will never have to fight anyone. So his philosophy is consistent with the white supremacist groups. He don't have the heart to say, we hate the white man. He said, we hate the underdogs of the white race. We like L1 Hubbard. They say the Jews control everything. The Jews don't control Scientology. So that's my point. You're not even throwing a rock. If you don't even cast a stone, you're not casting it at the real enemy. The real enemy is the total white race. So my point is, we need the black men to become a real army and a real nation in our community. They do martial arts all day. They do all these exhibits. For what? To just try to create fear among black people of how tough they are. They flipping each other on the mat. You know what I'm saying? And all that's acting and staged. Gotta know how to fall right when I throw you, brother. To promote fear in our community of them. But they not doing none of that wrestling and shit with the white man. Police brutality and all this, they not flipping none of these damn devils. You hear what I'm saying? Who you flipping in? What are you learning all this martial arts for? To protect Snoop Dogg and these rappers? You all doing all this flipping in martial arts to protect Hollywood? It's all an act. It's not funny. It's a tragedy when you tell me you raising a nation with a real army, but you can't do a damn real thing for the black community. You can't stand for nothing. Unless somebody writes you a check, then you can do some security. Come to communities where they shooting at and do security. Where's the FOI at? And you are supposed to be our leader and the leader of our black nation, but can't stand for a damn thing. And that's what Malcolm was telling Elijah. All this stuff is happening to our community, and you all not moving on no real black issues. And he was speaking out against the police and what the white man was doing. And Elijah told him to stop. Because the history of the Nation of the Islam has been more based on capitalism than it has been based on transforming and raising the black community. It has been more capitalistic. Open up stores, open up businesses, sell this. Let's get this money. I'm selling this, brother. I got this, brother. I'm selling this, brother. It has not been on waking up the black community since its inception, since the beginning of its birth.
I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that both Master Fard Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad would regard Minister Louis Farrakhan as an abject failure in terms of what he has made of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam today is nowhere near as influential institutionally or globally as it was at the time of Elijah Muhammad's death. And part of the mission that Elijah Muhammad entrusted Louis Farrakhan with was that Farrakhan was to take the Nation of Islam from being simply an organization and make it into an actual nation, into an actual state, effectively. And Louis Farrakhan has traveled the world. He has met with world leaders, world heads of state, to a far greater extent than even Malcolm X, and yet Minister Farrakhan hasn't leveraged any of those relations with those world leaders to get those leaders to back a Nation of Islam bid for United Nations membership. You would have thought that by now, the Nation of Islam, if it believes it has a right to be a state and to be a nation, that Louis Farrakhan, for all his international connections and relations, would have taken the case of the Nation of Islam and its aspirations for statehood to the UN. The Palestinians have taken their cause for statehood to the UN. The state of Israel was born in the United Nations. Every nation and every people who wish to create a state go to the UN to try to stake their claim. They don't acquire farmland. The Nation of Islam program under Louis Farrakhan has been a program that has taught its followers that we need to buy farmland, and that by acquiring farmland, we will become a nation. Now, name a single country in the entire international system that came into being through its people purchasing farmland. That's an idiotic proposition. But that is typical Louis Farrakhan. He is an imbecile of a leader. He is a leader who has... There is absolutely no way that African Americans could ever buy enough land within the United States to become a state. And even if they did buy up an entire state, they are still under the federal government. They couldn't simply declare statehood within the United States. They would have to go to the UN, or they would have to go before the Supreme Court at least, and try to make their claim there. But even they haven't done that. None of the Nation of Islam's legal representatives, like Arif Muhammad or Ava Muhammad, who are both attorneys, have even put together a legal brief for presentation before the Supreme Court, much less a presentation to make before the United Nations General Assembly. And so that just demonstrates how utterly lacking in seriousness Minister Farrakhan is when it comes to fulfilling the mission that Elijah Muhammad left him with. Elijah Muhammad did not simply leave Farrakhan with the task of rebuilding an organization, but with ultimately the task of getting, and these are Farrakhan's, Farrakhan has related that Elijah Muhammad said to him that through you, Louis Farrakhan, I will get all my people. That through Farrakhan, I will achieve, I will realize effectively statehood. That all African Americans, and I presume Elijah Muhammad saw that the entire black world as his people, would be gotten through Farrakhan. Now, Louis Farrakhan, here we are in the year 2011, and how close is Minister Farrakhan to fulfilling the mission that Elijah Muhammad assigned him? Louis Farrakhan has failed in that assignment. And so he has to accept that. His followers have to accept that. There is no other way to spin that. There's no way Farrakhan can spin his way out of a simple recognition that he has in fact failed Elijah Muhammad and failed to accomplish the mission of through you I will get all my people. I think there's no question the Nation of Islam today under Louis Farrakhan is a personality cult in his image, and a personality cult built around his charismatic but ultimately I guess evil personality. So clearly, as much as Minister Farrakhan pretends that he does not believe in the followers of the Nation of Islam directing worship at him, Louis Farrakhan has always been about his own aggrandizement, and ultimately he has debased the Nation of Islam into an organization that basically worships and is built around his character, and he's constantly encouraging that.
My language tonight. I was at the plantation earlier, but I caught the gist of everything. And I definitely have to give your dap for staying on this for a number of years now.
Yes, sir.
With me, I guess it first came to me, I guess, in late 2009 when I heard through the channels that laborers were being flown out to L.A. or California to undergo the course And a lot of the rank and file really didn't believe it. They were kind of in the dark about it. And as I, shared the word or whatever, I was called every name in the book. But we all see what it is now. And the thing is that people have to remember when you're talking about Farrakhan, I'm not speaking to some hater who never been on the inside, who never liked them to begin with. I mean, I'm telling you honestly, I would have given my life for this man at one time. That's a remarkable statement. People who know me will tell you that. A lot of friends who know me met me when I was on that side of the fence, as far as holding them down physically. And presenting him, I think it was his 66th birthday at the time when he was in Brooklyn, and Khaled came to that same event on Herkimer Street, Friendship Baptist, and I embraced the brother, and some of the fruit were looking at me like I kissed a white woman in the mouth. That's when I picked up on a lot of things that were changing. But when you're talking about the minister, or Lewis rather, you're talking about a man who said he only got $250,000 from the take at the Million Man March.
Right.
You're talking about a man who got in bed with Reverend Moon and the Unification Church back in the late 90s and kicked the same rat about the messenger said we will have friends from the East who will help teach us everything that we need to know. So don't be alarmed, but these are people from a different race. But see, one thing about the Koreans, you ain't going to hustle them or get over on them. They got a patent on hustling or whatever. So evidently that fizzled out. He got in. Gaddafi always kind of been his right-hand man. Now Gaddafi's dead and gone. And I think the speech when he did Who Are the Real Children of Israel, the way the nation propped that up and so much publicity was going hard with it, if you remember, after that speech, not a word from the mainstream media, not even the Jewish media, touched it. And that was extremely peculiar because we all grew up in the era and back in the day, if Farrakhan said half the things that he said about the Jews during that speech, they would have been all over him. But they knew, even at that time, he was bought and paid for. That it was a deafening silence, and at that time, I believe Farrakhan's hand was forced. That's why he went so hard with that speech. He already been in bed with the COS, but after that, he kind of made it official because I guess like the B.B. King song, "The Thrill Is Gone." The Jews knew he was bought and paid for. Half of the people are in the COS, and I'm going to say this, and a lot of people don't want to believe it, but I know it from a source I would trust with my life, literally. The man was paid $2.3 million. Make no mistake about it. I did not stutter. Plus a percentage of everyone who undergoes that audit and course or whatever the hell you want to call it.
I told you 2 years ago. I told him, thank you, Brother Bingham Reef. Thank you for that because that's just the confirmation of what we said 2 years ago when I told him that Farrakhan gets the 10% cut of every person that he brings into that shit.
Exactly. And you remember August 22nd, 2010, which now forever will be known as Traitors Day as opposed to Savior's Day, when Farrakhan basically gave that order to everyone in attendance. I want you to sign these forms and make this pledge. If you don't do that, that means you don't want to labor anymore. He resorted to all this emotional blackmail. If you relook at the video, even his whole facial demeanor seemed different. Like he was totally somewhere else. If you want to know what Farrakhan is going, all you have to do is follow the money. And that's what it's always been about with him. That's why he can look past all the Ron Hubbard stuff. He can write books on the secret relationship between blacks and Jews about stuff that happened 300 years ago. You don't know what Hubbard's about, and then fix your mouth to say you don't care. But the most redemptive thing to me personally is that there's a lot of people who were registered.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were a lot of people that I know personally who I bang with, argue with, who I've been threatened. I had my Facebook account hacked. I'm getting emails telling me that people in the Chicago area are trying to get into my account and all this type of stuff. Now some of those same people have seen the light and are saying the same things that I said. That's the personal satisfaction I get. Lewis, his fate is already sealed, and he's still the charmer. He's still the showman that he was back when he came on the Ted Mack show. So when he goes in front of an audience of black women and trot his wife out there,